Good morning, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. Coming at you to talk about the swap. And you see the title, it says purchase order. What is it and how is it used against you? And before I get started, I want everybody to know that everything you sign in life happens the same way, does the same thing. If you don't qualify that document in the right manner, what happens is you end up, according to the legal system, handing over your rights, titles, and interest to property. And in that same exchange, you take on a liability. So what's happening in effect in this public service, which is a public trust, is you're being swapped in stations. And they're taking on your benefit and placing their liability on you. So we're going to talk about a purchase order and show you what's happening, at least in the purchase order. And I'm telling you, it's the same thing that happens in everything else. You go to a bank to get a loan, you're taking on a liability and they're taking your benefit. You go to school to sign your kids up for school, register them for school. You're signing over a benefit and taking on a liability. Everything you do in life, if you don't qualify that signature in its legal capacity for what your station is of that legal capacity, then they're going to be presuming certain things for their own benefit. And again, we're talking about people that are just doing their job. They don't have any moral compass. They don't have what they feel is a moral obligation. And so they're just doing their job. Hitler's willing executioners. And those are the ones that are going to end up getting thrown under the bus one day or another. So let's take a look at it. Before we get started, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. And then, of course, there's PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love down in the details section. And the link to the StreamYard, join the panel, is down there for anybody who wants to join. And today we're going to look over Wikipedia definition first. I haven't done a Wikipedia definition for a while, but a lot of times these Wikipedia definitions give you a good, kind of like a common parlance outline of what we're talking about. And it says, a purchase order, often abbreviated to PO, is a commercial document issued by a buyer to a seller, indicating types, quantities, and agreed prices for products or services required. Read that again. A purchase order, often abbreviated to PO, is a commercial document issued by a buyer to a seller. So I want to ask everybody, when you go to that car lot and you get that purchase order, is that or is that not the dealership is the buyer and gave a purchase order to a seller? So what is the one selling to the buyer in the purchase order that has a product on it with a price and a description and everything? There's an exchange going on, in case you didn't understand that. Let's look at that again. It says a purchase order, often abbreviated to PO, is a commercial document issued by a buyer to a seller, indicating types, quantities, and agreed prices agreed prices for products or services required. It is used to control the purchasing of products and services from external suppliers. Purchase orders can be an essential part of enterprise resource planning system orders. Resource. So they're buying something from you and they're going to resource it. An indent. Indent. You always hear about this indentured servitude. An indent is a purchase order, often placed through an agent under specified conditions of sale. Remember that stamp that we reviewed the other day for qualifying a document that you put up in the top left-hand corner, and it says pay to the Treasury, pay to the Department of Treasury. That's the indentured servant already, just like I've been telling you, the Postal Service. United States Postal Service is the registered agent already. Those are cooperating agents in the same trust. They owe each other obligations, quid pro quo, equal consideration, equal benefit in their contract. That's a public service in the public trust. You, if you're involved, are a third party as a benefactor, and you get to put the facts in that document to give a directive on the indent. An indent is a purchase order often placed through an agent under specified conditions of sale. So they give you a purchase order, and that's an offer, and as soon as you take it, that makes a contract, and it is an acceptance. On that document, you can make certain specified notes, conditions, specify your conditions. That's what we're doing. We're putting pay to the order of, or whatever that stamp was, and we're dealing with the Treasury. That's who we're supposed to deal with. The issue of a purchase order does not itself form a contract. If no prior contract exists, then it is an acceptance of the order by the seller that forms a contract between the buyer and the seller. So it's saying just what I just said. The purchase order itself is not a contract. It's just a piece of paper with a bunch of stuff on it. And they want you to sell something to them. Now that document is called money. They can use it to buy things from sellers. I hope you're catching on. That document, known as a purchase order, is technically called money, and they're going to give it to you. And if you know the value of it, you can make it beneficial to yourself. For crying out loud, they put a price right on it. That price, no matter what kind of car you're buying today, is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Isn't that worth it to do a little bit of research? And if no prior contract exists, then it is an acceptance of the order by the seller. Remember what an order is? An order is a draft to pay. A note is a promise to pay. So you either have a promise to pay or an order to pay. This here is, they're giving you an order to pay. Okay. As soon as you accept it, now you have to pay, right? But they don't discuss the payment method. And they keep trying to convince you that their method is the way you pay. No. You have options. You have choices. If it's a contract, then first and foremost, it's private, not public. And by not qualifying that signature, it puts a liability on the public. Whereas if you do, it's a private routing whereupon you are extending your credit. That's what they're buying, your credit. Sell it to them, but know how to put the terms on there so that they know the value of it, that you receive the value equally considered. So if that car has a value of $58,179.43, and that's what it says on that purchase order, then you make sure it's using that device, that paper, to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. Purchase orders allow buyers to clearly and openly communicate with the sellers to maintain transparency. They may also help a purchasing agent to manage incoming orders and pending orders. Sellers are also protected by the use of purchase orders in case of a buyer's refusal to pay for goods or services. See, they're gonna exchange that good, the automobile, for your service. Your service is the qualification. And if you qualify that, you're providing them personal services of signing a document. You're not responsible. You're not required. You're not obligated to sign a document. But it's when you sign the document that supposedly the contract is supposed to be completed, and they have 3 days. Purchase orders provide benefits in that they streamline the purchasing process. Greetings, John. How you doing this morning?
Hello, Keith. Doing
good.
good.
To see you. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I just jumped on like 3 minutes ago, but like my understanding of the buyer's purchase agreement or the retail installment agreements is that those are the collateral. Like it's
Correct.
not the car or the house, it's the paper.
Correct, because that's got the information for the payment method.
Right, and that's why it's in triplicate, Keith. One of those is the asset.
Yes. You've got the original, which is the top copy. That's the asset. And then you got copies, and they go out to whoever. You know, you get a copy if you're involved, and of course the other person you're involved with is going to have a copy, and then the original is going to be filed for court purposes.
Yep.
Or recorded. They're going to keep it in their records. So the purchase orders provide benefits in that they streamline the purchasing process. Oops, what happened there? Streamline the purchasing process in a standard procedure. But we're not talking about standard procedures anymore. We're talking about an indenture under specified conditions. It is a conditional acceptance. You do get to put your conditions on there, and those conditions can be a directive for the payment method, and they should be. Commercial lenders or financial institutions may provide financial assistance on the basis of purchase orders. I don't know why it keeps scrolling up like that. There are various trade finance facilities that almost every financial institution allows business people to use against purchase orders, such as before shipment credit facility, post shipment credit facility, trade finance facility, foreign bill purchase credit facility, foreign bill purchase credit facility, bill retirement credit facility, order confirmation. There's that word firm. With firm. Order with firm. It's got to be confirmed. It's got to be an entity in a commercial capacity. Follow up. So you notice there's a lot of credit going on, right? Why is everybody dealing with money when you can use certain devices to get those things, money, property, labor, and services, on credit? The purpose of purchase orders is to procure, acquire. That's that federal acquisitions. They have to use the language. Federal acquisitions regulations. In order for somebody to acquire it, they must first inquire as to where they can get it, and it must be required. For these people to do this stuff, it's supposed to be required. First, then they can inquire, and then they can acquire. So for the dealership, they need to buy things. That's a requirement. That's how they make their money. They have to buy things. The things that they buy, they have to resell. In that same situation, you're considered the same kind of entity that's going to buy something from them and sell it. So they're going to buy from a seller. The presumption is that you're going to buy something from them and then sell it. But in that exchange of buying something from them, they're buying something from you too. So what they're selling is not the same thing you're selling, but they have to be equal considerations. This is what people don't get. Procure materials for direct consumption or for stock. Procure services. Fulfill customer requirements. Remember, the customer doesn't pay, do they? Remember the protocols, Universal Postal Union and the Post Office protocols? Under that Global Postal Trust Services, the customer is the one that is guaranteed freedom of transit throughout the entire territory of the Union. Same with this here. The customer is the one that's guaranteed the equal consideration so that their data elements, when exchanged in the proper manner, access that credit that is already there, like I said, based on a gross domestic product that's deposited every year into the International Monetary Fund, and they don't deposit Federal Reserve notes or pesos. It's a special deposit, or excuse me, a general deposit known as a pooled account. It's got all kinds of accounting in there from all the resources that they got it from. And all they do is deposit a document with the amount. that is to be credited to the IMF. So now the IMF has credits. They don't give the IMF physical paper money as you think money is, the Federal Reserve notes. No, no. They give them a document that has a dollar amount on it. Just like the Vatican, the Pope comes forward with a little black book. It's a bank book that has a valued amount in it for a new nation, to fund any new nation. When a new nation arises, yeah, it's the same thing. Using external resources or procure a material that is required in production from an internal source. They may also place once-only procurement transactions and optimize purchasing by taking full advantage of negotiated conditions for their optimal utilization of existing resource capacities. So if in your capacity you don't qualify that document, they're going to take full advantage of the conditions on that document that you did not negotiate, and they're going to use them for optimal utilization. You are the utility. They are utilizing you. You are the utility. When you go down to the utility company, you sign that document, and you don't do that with a qualified signature. You just swapped your benefit for a liability. They utilized you too. The water company, everybody. The post office, when you fill out that address change of address form, that's a procurement form. It's procuring your personal services. Everything you sign without qualifying it, they procure your personal services. So the last time I was in jail and I walked out refusing to sign anything, that document said release paperwork, because they wanted me to do my personal services of signing the document to release my own personal services to continue signing documents. That's the service. My personal service is signing documents, but in doing so, I have to make sure that they're qualified so that no debt is placed against the United States, and in fact, it operates on credit that it's already existing there through the gross domestic product. It's just a matter of channeling it from the right account to the right accounts. You have to have the mental capacity. Oops. We'll get to that one next time.
And that's why we're purchasing agents, Keith, when we go into a store, right?
Correct. They will call you everything but the customer, or if they call you customer, they still won't understand the difference between a customer, consumer, all those other things. And it's important to understand this English language is so colorful. And this is why I urge, if you're going to get into the definitions and etymology and all that, make sure you check out a thesaurus, because a thesaurus operates on the opposite of what a dictionary does. Dictionary operates on alphabetical order, and it'll tell you the meaning of the word afterwards. The thesaurus tells you the meaning of a word and gives you all of the synonyms that go with that meaning. So it's very confusing, and I certainly understand that, and I see the indoctrination through the public education in that English language, and I see it for myself. I don't call people a bitch-ass slave because I'm not. I call you a bitch-ass slave because I know what a bitch-ass slave is all about. I was one myself. I'm trying to help you out, that's all. So don't take any offense, please. So in the meantime, creating a purchase order is typically the first step of the purchase to pay process in an ERP system. Funny they give you this, but the enterprise asset management, that's interesting. Does that tell you something? That sounds like, look at that. They got the customer services, sales, procurement, production, distribution, corporate governance, or performance and governance, human resource, accounting, e-commerce, business intelligence, enterprise asset management, and others. They got it all graphed out. Enterprise resource planning. And you get to enter into a prize system. This is about the wards and awards and rewards, in case you don't get it. So let's go back. Purchase orders may require a SKU code, stock keeping unit. If you've ever gone out and done the inventory programs, I used to work for a place called Regis, and they did that. They would go out and inventory stores. We'd go out to a huge Walmart, big old crew of us, fucking middle of the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, we'd arrive.
Yep.
And we'd go through every item on every shelf and count them.
Yep.
And that's what you counted. Your scanner counted the SKU code. Go ahead.
And you type with one hand. You know, you got to keep your eyes and your hands going at the same time.
Oh yeah, if you're not qualified to do look and do a keyboard without looking, if you can't look at the product and sit there and count with one hand like this as you're going through the stock of things hanging on a rack, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then punch your number, you're probably not going to make it because you got to be quick at that stuff. They want you to be quick. Got to be done with efficiency. So it says many organizations encourage staff to use a purchasing card or procurement card for low value purchases instead of issuing a purchase order. Many organizations encourage staff to use a purchasing card for low value purchases instead of issuing a purchase order. That means you can go to any grocery store and tell them you want a purchase order. And what you're going to do is you're going to give them an itemized list, an inventory of what you want. You're going to give them that list and have them draw up an estimate. Now that estimate is going to be their actual prices. But see, now you've got a definitive paper document that you can qualify instead of an electronic purchase card that's going to stick into a machine and automatically pay it according to the way that machine is set up. Now you have a way of dealing. Like I said, they can't get rid of the definitive paper documentation. That's your way to negotiate. So if you want to change the way the payment is routed, you can do that, but you have to be able to write things down for them to know what you're looking for. And it's simply an inventory. Listen, I want to shop at your store. Here are the items I want. In order for my accountant to deal with it, I need you to give me a purchasing order. It's kind of like a guardian conservatorship. And they have to accept it because that's exactly what it is. This is a public service of a public trust that deals with guardianships and conservatorships. And in order to qualify things appropriately, your accountant, the Department of the Treasury, needs a way to properly route it. That's who your accountant is. You don't need the accountant down at the other end of the street. You don't need the local accountant. These people already know their job and they know it damn well. If you learn it, you don't have to deal with any other middlemen. So they've got you using credit cards instead of issuing a purchase order that you can qualify in a lot of places. You can do the same thing at Walmart. Anywhere you go, you can just simply ask for a purchase order. Here's my itemized list. I need a purchase order with these items on it so I know what the amount is for my accountant.
Wow.
For business scenarios, anticipate a reduced role for purchase orders or even their full elimination. Damn it, I don't know why it's doing that. Full elimination. See, it's the paperwork. It's the Paperwork Reduction Act, and the less paper they have to do, and the more they can put that work into the electronic system, the more efficient it's going to be cost wise. And I would agree with that. But at the same time, if you don't understand what's happening here, that full elimination is leaving you without a proper payment method on credit. Because again, you have to get that money into an account first. The credits are already there.
Keith, a credit card worker, let's say that's their title, aren't they conversion agents?
I couldn't say that. I do know that through Bancorp and MasterCard, PayPal is a converter.
Okay.
Leaving organizations with a smaller or more strategic procurement function than in the past. So it's to your benefit to use purchase orders yourself. You're the small guy. Okay? It's the big guys that want to procure things and get things for their benefit and place liabilities on other people. That's a very efficient method for them. But it's a very deficient method for you. It's the problem. Kai Nawasel and Chris Timmermans of Consultants Accenture ask why purchase orders and invoices are needed when digital systems can deliver goods, confirmations, and authorized funds, and suggest that digital functionality and supply analytics will change the landscape for purchase orders and processes in coming years. I'm telling you, the process is always going to be the same. You have a guy that's going to make a profit off the loss of other men, and you've got a guy that's going to be able to redeem those losses. Those are the only two methods. So if you don't know what you're doing, they're going to make a profit off of your loss. If you know what you're doing, you're going to redeem them, and it's all going to be equal consideration under truth. That's what redemption is placing the truth in the record. Listen, I already have an accountant. It's the Department of Treasury. As an American, that is my accountant. Now, the accountant, through the purchase order, for my benefit, I'm going to use the beneficiary, which is the United States citizen. I'm the benefactor to the beneficiary. The transfer agent, Treasury, is the go-between. Now, if you want to procure my personal services, I will gladly equally exchange my personal services and the credit thereof for that nice-looking automobile with the MCO. Legal. Although a typical purchase order may not be worded as a contract, in fact, most contain little more than a list of goods or services the buyer desires to purchase. Oops. Did someone misstate that there? It contains a list of the goods or services the buyer is selling in exchange for what they're buying in return. You have to put what they're buying. That's the signature. You have to put it in its total value so that you get benefit. Otherwise, you're going to be paying the price on their payment terms. And again, when you do that purchase order correctly, you get to put the shipping instructions. Let's take a look there. 19 CFR 149.3, as it relates to those data elements where you can give a number in lieu of a name and address. A widely recognized commercially identifiable number can be used in lieu of the name and address, okay? And you can use that as a seller, a buyer, or a ship to party. So while you're at the lot, you can have them, when you fill out that purchase order, part of your directive could be in, so that you don't have to go back to the lot in 3 days and pick it up, but that they complete the contract by drop shipping it to your address.
Direct manufacturer.
Correct. It's very important to understand this stuff. So let's get back. The purchase order is a specially regarded instrument regulated by the Uniform Commercial Code. So don't tell me that a sovereign citizen uses the current Uniform Commercial Code. Okay? All purchase orders, and therefore trying to fully eliminate the purchase orders and replace them with purchase cards. You know, what do you purchase those goods with? A credit card, debit card, that's a purchase card. It's the same damn thing. Okay? Or other similar law which establishes a purchase order as a contract by its nature. Yet, despite the nature of the purchase order as a contract, it is common to accompany the acceptance of a purchase order with a legal document, such as the terms and conditions of sale, which establish specific or additional legal conditions of the contract. So you're going to give them a letter of instruction or a letter of credit, sometimes they call it. They're the same thing. You're going to give them a letter of instruction directing the routing to access the credit account as a payment method. And if you have a payment method to pay on credit, then why do you need to pay with money or with an installment plan if you can do so right at the beginning by conditionally accepting it for the device on credit? Here we go again. The federal acquisition regulations that I mentioned earlier. Anytime they're talking about procurement, they're talking about that federal acquisition regulations. States that purchase orders should generally be used on a fixed price basis, but provision is also made for unpriced purchase orders to be issued where it is impractical to obtain pricing in advance of issuance of the purchase order. So where it is impractical to obtain pricing in advance. Like I said, if you go to that store, the pricing's already there. So it's not impractical to obtain pricing in advance of issuance of the purchase order. It is in fact practical because it's already there. So just give them a list of the inventoried items you need and a legal document when they give you that invoice. Attach your legal document, letter of instruction to it, and it operates just as a card. It should operate on a credit system where you don't have to hand over money. In the UK, the Office of Government Commerce noted the concern in 2010 that contracting authorities were not always raising purchase orders, and that they were instead used invoices the invoices were not always being reconciled to purchase orders before payment. Formats. Electronic. Many purchase orders are no longer paper-based, but rather transmitted electronically over the internet. It is common for electronic purchase orders to be used to buy goods or services of any type online. So when you go to eBay, that is a purchase order. You can print that off, fill it out, attach a letter of instruction and a ship-to-party address, and mail it to Amazon. Mail it. Introduce the trustees, the Postal Service, and the Treasury. They're already co-trustees in the public trust.
Or the indentured trustees of the company itself, Keith, right? If you can find them.
Right, and that's when you look up the SEC agreement. and find out who's been assigned as the trustee.
Okay.
And I think that's on your you can find that on the 10K and the 4.1. There are many names for electronic purchase orders. It is also known as e-procurement, e-purchasing, e-purchase requisition. These terms are normally all referring to electronic purchase orders. So again, these electronic forums, damn it. These electronic forums, don't call them purchase orders, and they do everything electronically. And when you filled out that document at the bank or whoever you got the card from, it wasn't done in its qualified capacity, and therefore it was presumed, assumed, and implied that you too are one of those agents. Non-electric. The record of purchase order in most business firms, they insist on using that term, firms, are still on paper, and thus there is a need for proper purchase order format. The record of purchase order in most business firms are still on paper, and thus there is a need for proper purchase order format. Many users wish to have professional formatting for purchase orders for several reasons. A company may wish to have a strong understanding of purchase transactions or to know the basic requirements of purchase order. It may also make it part of business documentation, which makes the process easier while keeping record of all transactions and to have good impression on the client or customer. Planned purchase order. This is what I was talking about with the grocery store. The term planned purchase order is used to refer to a buyer's commitment to purchase goods or services from a single supplier on a long-term basis, with individual purchase orders specifying the quantities required from time to time. Every month, you're going to purchase some groceries. Every month, from time to time, you're going to go to that store with the purchase order. This is the thing that I see in my mind. This is my concept. I'm not telling you to go out and do this. I'm telling you, you're never going to learn about it unless you do try to learn how to negotiate things instead of just accepting them as they are, with everybody lying to you because they just don't know and they want to sound good. I spent 2 weeks with my companion trying to figure out where this documentation was on this claim that they made where they came in and garnished her account. And nobody had record of it. Blackhawk County didn't have record of it. Georgia didn't have record of it, where Crown Asset Management is. And they filed a claim against a resident of another state that's not even a resident. Lynn County didn't have record of it, yet they all had their grubby little fingers on it, names in it, and were defaming my companion's name and garnished her $3,800. Yet nobody seems to have record of it until finally I started threatening the local courthouse that we're going to end up doing a forensic securities audit on her entire account. Oh, all of a sudden now we have it, but you'll have to come down and down to the courthouse and look it up online and register online. No, we don't. No, we don't. Like I said, if we have to do a forensic securities audit, the thing we're going to do the forensic securities audit on is the name. You guys are using her name. Everything you use her name on is hers. Don't you get it? So then all of a sudden yesterday we got a document in the mail, 50 pages, damn near 50 pages, and they didn't charge us a dime. Again, 50 cents a copy, and they copied both sides. So we got 50 pages on both sides. That's almost 100. That's almost 100 copies. That's at $50 that they would have charged somebody $50 to get that file. The fuck you will.
Yep. And IRS audits are at least 52, Keith.
Oh
QSIPs are
yeah.
250.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not going to be a fun game for them if I have somebody come in and do a forensic audit on 94 of my cases. My companion only has a few. A purchase order request or purchase requisition is a request sent internally within a company to obtain purchased goods and services, including stock.
Mm.
A purchase order request or purchase requisition is a request sent internally within a company to obtain purchased. It's already purchased. Goods and services, including stock. The request is a document which tells the purchasing department or manager exactly what items and services are requested, the quantity, source, and associated costs. So you have to learn where that source of credit is to be able to give it to them. A purchase requisition form is filled out prior to purchasing goods as a form of tangible authorization. So you are the one that is authorizing it. You are the authority. Again, get the idea that they've swapped everything, made themselves the authority and the beneficiary, and put all liability on you. That is not the way this public service, which is a public trust, is supposed to work. Purchase request forms are often used in smaller business who do not have a computer-based system. However, many included web-based solution systems are available on the market that can facilitate the capture of purchase request information. Purchase order requests can also be passed on or passed to the purchasing department via a management information system. Social Security is a management information system.
All right.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And you are a creditor to it. Now, that management information system being operated by the state is supposed to be a credit to the United States. So you and the Social Security Administration are technically the creditors in that situation of routing. It's got to go through the Social Security number. Therefore, if you're going to placate that you're a creditor, they must be a creditor too. That's co-creditor, and that matches with co-trustee. So now the beneficiary, the record that Social Security has, shows that they're a benefactor and that they're going to receive a benefit. They're going to get some kind of funding as a transfer agent right along with the Department of Treasury. They're all going to get paid for their services. It's all going to be paid for on my credit because they don't have credit.
Wait, Keith, it shows that they're a benefactor or beneficiary.
The record is a beneficiary. And if they're holding it, they have control and entry of the beneficiary. So they obviously are a trustee. In that capacity, they too get to benefit. You have to pay these trustees for their services. But you gotta learn you have a credit line that you can use, and that makes it easier to go ahead and pay them. I have a friend of mine that did a purchase order, and they were squabbling about it. He said, listen, tell you what, I'm going to put this amount down here. Instead of the purchase amount, I'm going to put this amount. And you'll see it's thousands of dollars extra. And when you do this instruction, like I said, you're going to see that money is going to show up in your account. The guy went ahead and did it. And now he goes back and sends people to that same place. Oh, and the guy says, yeah. Oh, he recommended you? Yeah, you're good. Let's go. It's a matter about knowing how to do it and becoming friends. They are your friend. And you can make it a non-taxing. They like that. Oh, it's a non-taxable credit transfer. Oh yeah, you're not one of the slaves, and so we get to do this without taxation. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's the way it works.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
It's a matter of learning how to negotiate. And if you're the top dog in negotiating and you can blow them out of the water, they're going to want you to work for them.
Oh yeah.
You just got to learn how to make it profitable for everybody. You can't be selfish in this stuff. So let's go back. And I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal button down below for anybody who wants to share some love. Until I get this all this figured out and situated, I'm in the same boat as you guys, operating on a doctrine of necessity. So every little bit helps, and it is appreciated greatly. In the meantime, there's the PayPal or the StreamYard link. I'm going to drop that again for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we're going to get back into the definition here from Wikipedia, and then we've got some others we're going to go on to. Purchase request forms are off management system. A PRF may contain budget and purchase values to make the individual aware of the annual and remaining budget before a purchase is made. Such a system is there to guarantee that goods and services are purchased with consent of the line manager and that a sufficient budget is available. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to be talking about this kind of stuff with them so that, like I said, you're going to show them where the credit's going to come from and that everything along their line management, their budget is going to be covered. Communicate with these people, find out what it is and that they need to cover and say, listen, man, I understand you're going through a lot of frustration with me in dealing with this new concept. You know, I'm willing to give you a little bit more for your sales commission, you know. So just let me know if I get to be too much of a hassle. That's how easy it is. It's a stroke of a pen, folks. See also blanket order, collateral billing number, invoice, purchase order request, remittance advice, sales order, supply chain auction, remittance advice. That's for the full acquittance. You have to remit the coupon to have recoupment. So it's remittance. And let's see, remittance. This is the letter of instruction, letter of credit. This is what you're going to do. You're going to give them directive. Is a letter sent by a customer to a supplier to inform. Let's look at it. To inform the supplier that their invoice has been paid. If the customer is paying by check, the remittance advice often accompanies the check. The advice may consist of a literal letter. To whom it may concern, your shipment of the 10th inst. Was received in good order. Accompanying is our remittance of $52.47 per invoice number or a voucher attached to the side or top of the check. Voucher is a bond of the redeemable transaction type, which is worth a certain monetary value, which may be spent only for specific reasons or on specific goods. That's what your Federal Reserve notes are. They're a military voucher that's only supposed to be used to purchase military goods and supplies. Did you know those items on the shelf are military surplus? When you go to the grocery store and they have that expiration date, you know all the stuff that sits on that shelf over at Walmart? Those are all technically military surplus. Remittance advices are not mandatory. However, they are seen as a courtesy because they help the accountant's receivable department to match invoices with payments. Accounts receivable is an asset. Accounts receivable for a business. It shows something they received and is ledgered on the credit side. So give them credit so it matches on credit. The remittance advice should therefore specify the invoice numbers for which the payment is tendered. In countries where checks are still used, most companies' invoices are designed so that customers return a portion of the invoice, called a remittance advice, with their payment. That's what you have with your billing statements. They tell you right on it, detached below the dotted line, send in with payment. It's called a remittance. All you have to do, you don't even have to tear it off. Again, you can use that stamp we saw the other day on top of the bill, qualify the signature, flip it over, put your beneficiary number or put your beneficiary information on there as signed by beneficiary, whatever, and attach your letter of remittance, giving them the directive for full acquittance and discharge so that no person shall be held liable in any court pursuant to your stamp. Paid to the Treasury. In countries where wire transfer is the predominant payment method, invoices are commonly accompanied by standardized bank transfer order forms. That's a transfer rather than a transaction. Transfer literally refers to the transfer of property, known as an asset. The transaction is the paperwork that is transferred. The paperwork that is exchanged and stuff. That's the transaction. That's what's done in action that leads to a transfer of an asset. Which include a field into which the invoice or client number can be encoded. So if the store is the business and you're the customer, you would be the client. So again, it lines up with 19 CFR 149.3, where the buyer or seller or ship-to party can use a widely recognized commercially identifiable number in lieu of the name and address. And they actually tell you that you can do that on an invoice as a client, usually in a computer-readable way. The payer fills in his account details and hands the form to a clerk at or mails it to his bank, which will then transfer the money. At your treasury. These employees who open the incoming mail should initially compare the amount of cash received with the amount shown on the remittance advice. See, they're expecting to receive cash. You can send it, that letter is cash. Okay, understand again, that letter is paper. The bill is paper. Those are known as commercial papers. That's money. That's cash. Okay, those are negotiable instruments. And on those instruments, you place your negotiations. So they might expect cash or a check or even a money order. So it's going to be a problem sometimes trying to get some of this stuff set up where these people aren't familiar with just doing a direct line of credit. And with that letter of instructions, that's what you're supposed to qualify. You're supposed to explain to them what's going on so that they understand why there's no cash. If the customer does not return a remittance advice, an employee prepares one. If the customer does not return a remittance advice, an employee prepares one. This is where you have to give your instructions. This is where you didn't learn that you were supposed to do this stuff. Everybody just takes it convenient and says, okay, well, we'll let the business do it all. What you're doing is you're relieving yourself of a benefit to make sure it's known that you are the creditor. That's the whole problem. Like I said, if you're going to sign these documents and not give a directive, then they're going to do what they're going to do because they're just doing their job. Their job tells them that if you don't get a remittance advice, you have to make one because otherwise we can't send it in to have it discharged. We can't send it to our bank and have them discharge it. We have to do that. It's got to be there. It has to be there. Like the cash register tape, the remittance advice serves as a record of cash initially received. Modern systems will often scan a paper remittance advice into a computer system where data entry will be performed. Modern remittance advice can include dozens or hundreds of invoice numbers and other information. Remittance advices can be very complicated, especially in specialized fields like medical insurance payments. Now, I'm going to tell you real quick here when it comes to the medical insurance payments. Many of you are familiar with my sales agreement that I discussed in relations to my lung cancer. The lung cancer, I went to the emergency because I was having pain and I just couldn't handle it. And they gave me a nice little document that said sales agreement. And on there, it clearly, in plain writing, pretty much says the customer agrees to make third-party payment so long as it's understood that the credit is given to the customer's account. That's simple language for a remittance. That's a remittance statement. That's what they're doing. It's already there. In a lot of these situations, it's already there. Just have to learn how to read. So the next one we're going to get on to, we're going to look at purchase order from wikipedia.org at StreamYard. Okay, what is a purchase order? A purchase order is a commercial source document that is issued by a business purchasing department when placing an order with its vendors or suppliers. You're going to supply them with a signature. Don't confuse that. They need you. They need the customer more than the supplier. Without the customer, they don't need a supplier. If they have a supplier but no customers, they don't need the supplier.
With valuable consideration, right, Keith?
Yes. Yes. And real quick before we go on, let me go back to this because I just realized I wanted to make a special note. See also pay stub, lockbox, letter of transmittal. You know what a lockbox is, don't you? That's a bank box. That's a bank vault. That's a P.O. box because it's got a lock on it. It's under lock and key. A paycheck. Did you get a check? Did you receive a check for services? Were those services actually qualified, and did you actually get paid for the underlying service? You know, your personal service for signing all those documents that you would then turn around and employ to flip burgers. Did you get a paycheck for the underlying signature? If not, then you didn't qualify it properly. Had to mute you there, John. You've got two devices going. Hear you in the background. So let's get back to it. We got what is a purchase order? Like we said, a commercial purchase order is a commercial source document, and that's their resource. You're the source, and it gets resourced. That is issued by a business purchasing department when placing an order with its vendors or suppliers. The document indicates the details on the items that are to be purchased, such as the types of goods, quantity, and price. In simple terms, it is the contract drafted. Remember, it's a draft if it's an order. It's a note if it's a promise. By the buyer when purchasing goods from the seller. Buyer creates a purchase requisition. Before sending out the purchase order to the supplier, the first step is to create a purchase requisition. This is a document issued within the company to the purchasing department to keep track of goods ordered. The purchase requisition also helps the company keep an account of their expenses. The PO is created only after the purchase requisition is approved by the authorized manager. So when you go to the dealership and they give you a purchase order, then it's already authorized. The purchase requisition is approved by the authorized manager. You understand that? An offer has to be approved. You have to approve an offer in good faith. That's what's authorized. It's authorized to be put forth and handed to somebody in good faith. If somebody puts their terms and conditions on that document and hands it back and they don't accept it, that is dishonor. They made an offer in good faith. You accepted it in good faith, putting your good faith and honorable terms on there, and they're not accepting it. Why would they not accept a payment from the Treasury? Buyer creates a purchase order. When the goods that need to be purchased are agreed upon, the purchase order is created. The PO lists the date of the order, FOB shipping information, discount terms, names of the buyer and seller, description of the goods being purchased, item number, price, quantity, and the PO number. So you coming along as a third party, and they think you're a buyer. They think you're selling something. Whatever it is, understand your station and what you can do. You have the ability to negotiate. Learn how to negotiate. I don't know what the guy is going to say to me when I go to the car lot and try this. So it's going to be it's going to have to act in personam at the spur of the moment, in now time, for me to be able to negotiate with him to understand what I'm putting on the document so that he will then process it. Otherwise, I will have to take that purchase order to an accountant, do a forensic securities audit on it, and then shove it down their throat in a manner that they'll be glad to give me that automobile. At least this is the way it goes in my imaginary mind. This is the way I've discerned it, that the words, the way they're being used in this public service of public trust, that has gotten nothing but its entire wealth system off the backs of the people. And I'm tired of people telling me that's not my credit. The fuck it isn't. It's the credit of my forefathers, their forefathers, and the forefathers before that. That's what this system works on. It's tontine banking principles. You can't dismiss that one fact. The PO number is a unique number associated with a certain order. It serves two purposes. One is to ensure that the goods ordered match the ones that are received. Secondly, the PO number is matched to the invoice to make sure the buyer is charged the right amount for the goods. Seller accepts or rejects purchase order. At the bottom of the purchase order is a dotted line for the authorized manager of the seller to sign off on the order. The PO includes all the details about the transaction and what the buyer expects to receive. Once the seller receives the PO, they have the right to either accept or reject the document. However, once the PO is accepted, it becomes legally binding contract for both parties. This is why those instructions that you put on there have to be true and correct. You have to know what you're doing. You can't just send it off to, say, the Bureau of Fiscal Management. They're not the ones that take care of purchase orders like that. They would be the ones taking care of the recoupments for those coupons on the bottoms of your bills. You would send those to the Bureau of Fiscal Service with the Treasury stamp on it. No matter who you send it to, it should go to the Treasury. So you technically send it to the IRS every time, and it should get to the Treasury. Once the order has been placed, the purchase order remains open. An open purchase order is PO where the order is placed, but the goods have not been received. Or it can mean that only part of the order has been received. Either way, it signifies that the delivery of the goods is not complete. Once the order has been placed, the purchase order remains open. So you get that purchase order, and there's no signature on it, and it's set up just like they say here. That's an open purchase order. Once you put your conditions on it, and as long as they're true and correct, it signifies that that contract is complete. And now they have a requirement to complete the delivery. Benefits of purchase orders: avoid duplicate orders, keep track of incoming orders, serves as legal document. How does the supplier use the purchase order? Purchase orders play a major role in the inventory management process. When the supplier receives the PO, they will take the items listed in the PO from their inventory. That purchase order is going to look for your name. That's an item from your inventory. It was invented, okay? And you get to orally state it. That's an oral invention. Inventory. Okay? That's what you're selling. They can't do a goddamn thing without your name. They can purchase all them automobiles from a manufacturer all they want, but there's got to be a demand chain for that supply. Purchase orders play a major role in the inventory management process. The PO helps keep a record of the inventory on hand and identify any discrepancies between the values shown in the records and the actual stock. Additionally, the supplier needs the PO to fill out the order correctly. The buyer will also be charged by the supplier based on the payment terms agreed upon in the PO. The buyer will also be charged by the supplier based on the payment terms agreed upon in the PO. So if they're the buyer and you're the seller, because they issued the purchase order and you accepted it, why aren't you charging them? Additionally, the supplier needs the PO to fill out the order correctly. The buyer will also be charged by the supplier based on the payment terms agreed upon in the PO. Purchase order versus invoice. Purchase order is a document generated by the buyer and serves the purpose of ordering goods from the supplier. The invoice, on the other hand, is generated by the supplier and shows how much the buyer needs to pay for goods bought from the supplier. The PO is a contract of sale, while the invoice is the confirmation of the sale. So you're going to confirm the sale first before you contract it. You have to confirm what you're buying before you buy it. Purchase order versus sales order. While the purchase order shows what goods were ordered from the supplier, the sales order is generated by the supplier and sent to the buyer. It signifies the confirmation or approval of the sale. Nowadays, the purchase or PO process is no longer paper-based, and the buyer usually sends its supplier an electronic PO. This is done using the PO module in the ERP software. It helps speed up the purchasing process while decreasing the chance of error. That's what they say. You've been signing these things and doing these things in error all of your life. I urge you to stop, understand what's going on, and learn how to negotiate in paper form. Glossary of procurement and supply chain terms. I'm going to go ahead and drop this. And I didn't know I was not on that screen share. I don't know why I do that stuff, but here's a link for this one, which is a glossary of procurement and supply chain terms, folks. These are terms that you should be familiar with when you're dealing with all of these commercial venues. And just to show you, this is what I was reading from prior. Purchase order. Corporate Finance Institute. That's the next link I'm dropping. And folks watching the video, these links will not be in the details section. They're in the private chat as I'm running the video. So feel free to check out the top here while we're waiting. Oh, I guess it's not going to show. I'll at least read it off to you. All in one thing without any spaces. For the link, it's corporatefinance.com/resources/accounting/purchase-order. So the next one I want to look at, it comes from accountingtools.com/articles/purchase-order. Again, I'll put this link down in the chat section. This says accounting tools. What is a purchase order? A purchase order is is a written authorization from a buyer to acquire goods or services. The document authorizes a supplier to deliver to the buyer at the price, quality level, delivery date, and certain other terms specified in the agreement. A purchase order is legally binding after the supplier countersigns it. Legally binding after a supplier countersigns it. So while you're being considered a seller, you're also a buyer. See, it's a quid pro quo. It's equal consideration. As I'm selling something, I'm also buying something in exchange. It's an equal exchange. So what I'm buying is maybe not the exact same like kind as the thing that I'm selling, but it's given equal consideration. My signature and my information on your purchase order in the documentation in written form as a transaction is for the exchange and transfer of your asset to me. I'm giving you my asset, which is my signature and my information. It's an intangible asset that leads to a tangible asset. Now, the intangible asset is still just as valuable because it's going to give you the credits that will be deposited in electronically in your account that you can then convert to cash through your banker. But you're still going to get the equal amount, whether it be money, cash, or credits. So why not work on the credit system, guys? Master purchase orders. A purchase order is time-consuming to create. To reduce the workload, some organizations issue a master purchase order to each supplier, authorizing considerably more than is initially needed. The master purchase order as needed. To save time, many purchase orders are now delivered in electronic format over the internet. Disadvantages of purchase orders. The development of purchase order can be a time-consuming process. As such, it can significantly impede the purchasing process within a business. Consequently, its use tends to be limited to higher value purchases. And then finally we have Investopedia. What is a requisition? Remember we saw that requisition earlier? Requisition order, acquisition. What is a requisition and how does it work? The process of formally requesting a service or item, typically using a purchase requisition form or another standardized document. A requisition is using documentation. The process of formally requesting a service or item, typically using a purchase order. Requisition formally requests a service or item, typically using a purchase requisition form or another standardized document. The requisition process is standardized way of keeping track of and accounting for all requisitions made within a business. The requisition process is a standardized way of keeping track of and accounting for all requisitions made. Key takeaway: the requisition is a formal request for obtaining a product or service typically initiated by a business. The requisition process typically requires standardized documents, known as requisition forms, to maintain an audit trail, although most are electronic forms. Requisitions are often used to procure additional supplies, raw materials, or working hours for better inventory control. Procure to pay, pay to pay. Systems fully automate the purchasing process from requisition to vendor. That's the ERP. That's the pay-to-pay system. That's the electronic payment system. Okay? How a requisition works. A requisition initiates the request for a specific action, not particular or general, and also records that action for subsequent reporting needs. For example, employees within a company would use a purchase requisition if they needed additional supplies. At one time, requisitions were done via paper form, but most companies now use digital requisition processes that enable easier process tracking, including accounting for relevant inventory. These types of requisitions often automatically update the inventory for better control. A formalized requisition process improves efficiency and accountability across all points of contact, except, of course, when you're not involving the United States, right? Right. So when you start involving the United States and let them know it's an international transaction based on your American citizenship versus the United States citizenship in that letter of instruction, they should catch on real quick. Hey, this guy's not going to play us let us play this game of it's our interest. It's not. See, the United States has an obligation or other security on the interest of the debt. It's theirs. No debt gets issued without the permission of the United States, just like no credit gets issued without the permission of the United States. Yet here we are issuing all these documents, and they're being called debt notes because we're deemed to be part of the United States and so authorized to do so. The problem is that creates this huge debt that we see on the ledger. Operating correctly, they cannot issue it as a debt. They cannot come back after you like they did with my companion and say, well, you owe us money. Now we have to create a debt instrument. Because as far as I know, that credit agreement that she signed up for was to obtain money, property, labor, and services on credit. And now they're coming after her, getting her credit that was supposed to have already been extended in that credit agreement. and in fact was. It's just that the bank took it and said, now you owe us money. They got their goddamn credit. Compared to an approach where employees take supplies anytime, the purchase requisition provides a more controlled and documented method for managing internal supply inventories and future demand. So it's like Firestone. They have this rack, huge rack of tires. Now they know somewhere in their inventory they've got a set of 175 R14s. You know, small tire for a small kind of car. And they know they've got one of those sets in there, but a customer comes in and he doesn't like that brand. He wants a Firestone brand. So they're going to take a inventory searching for that tire, and they find out, oh, nope, they don't have it. So that was a purchase request by a customer. So now they're going to put out a purchase order and tell the customer to come back later on. Same thing. It's a special order, specific. And it's because there's a deficiency in the supply by the auto repair shop or the tire shop, because the customer doesn't want what they've got. They want something a little bit better in their mind. Has to be a little bit more efficient. So the stock is not efficient. It's deficient, and therefore they're going to requisition something that is efficient for that customer. You have to make your specific demands. You have to learn how to negotiate, and you have to be able to learn how to do that exact same thing as a customer going into a tire shop and say, hey, that's not what I want. I want this. You have to be able to learn how to negotiate. It is the invent ori. You have to invent orally what you want. That's the negotiation. And in order to do that, you have to know the language used to do that invention. Fast fact, in the medical profession, doctors complete a requisition form when requesting lab tests. These digital forms include the patient ID and other medical information, assuring patients receive correct lab tests. Standardized requisition forms typically include the items such as the name of the person or company making the request, date of the request, items requested, the delivery date, delivery location, contact information, department responsible for fulfilling the request. The Department of the Treasury is the one responsible for fulfilling the request. The location is my account and the contact information there. The date of the request is today. The item requested is credit for the services, and it must be done in 3 days. Name of the person or company making the request would be, of course, Keith Little, the American, for the benefit of the United States citizen, so that no debt is ledgered against the United States. And there you go, a vendor information blank requisition form. And you can get these things from your business supply offices and stuff. They'll have, just like any receipt book, they'll have requisition forms and purchase order forms and all kinds of different business forms. And they're all basically kind of the same thing. It's a negotiable instrument or a receipt of some sort in exchange. That receipt is going to have information, valuable information. The valuable information on the receipts I got, it's got U.S. debit. I would think that would be valuable information to the United States. How valuable is it? Would be the value of the amount of the debt being posed against the United States. I'm sure they would take the same value and clear that up if I allowed them that redemption. You know what I mean, Gene? And here they've got a little error. I'll have to let them know. We can't read this. Their programming has gotten in the way and put this form over top of the writing, so we can't read that. Another example of requisition process occurs within the world of finance when shareholders choose to requisition a company's board of directors to take a vote on proposed resolutions. At its essence, a requisition process is a formalized, documented procedure key to improving efficiencies within a business setting. That's what's happening at court. When you go to court, the guy on the bench is acting as though your board, as if though he's the CEO and you're a shareholder and you don't have a board of directors and you're not voting right. And it's a deficiency in their company. Of course it is. I've never been trained to do this shit. I've spent 7 years learning this shit so I could figure it out so that now I know the problem. Now I can point it out. You think I'm efficient and have sufficient language to procure your products for you. Sorry, that would be an error. I'm hearing the word of God, and you will listen. Purchase requisition versus purchase order. A purchase requisition is an internal form used for purchasing goods and services and has no legal or binding contractual obligation. Company's internal purchase requisition form is for employees who wish to request supplies for their department or themselves. Frequently, these forms require managerial sign-off. So in the example I gave with the guy going to the tire shop to get a set of tires, the purchase order is an internal, the purchase requisition is a internal thing that they're going to order those tires that he wants, and that description of the tires that he wants is his invoice or his inventory. Excuse me. And so the company is going to make a purchase requisition so that then he can purchase them pursuant to the order. Purchase order is a contractual agreement companies use when ordering goods and services from an external vendor. So you're going to give them a purchase order for those tires, and it's just going to be a quick little note. They're just going to write it down on a notepad. And then they're going to get on the phone with their computer system and order it. And then when they come in with the next load of tires, they're going to give you a call and say, hey, we got your tires in. You want to bring that down, just let us know. They're going to complete that contract that you initiated by ordering or having them order those tires. That's a purchase order on your side. You're the one that drafted an order because you didn't like the tires they had in their stock. So you had them order through a purchase requisition. You gave them the purchase order and they did the purchase requisition. They would have never requisitioned those tires if nobody comes in and orders them. You didn't come in and promise to pay. You came in and ordered that you wanted those tires. You drafted an order based on the fact that once they were put on, then you would pay. You didn't tell them you were going to pay for them tires first and then come back when they came in and then have them put them on. No, you had them requisition them so that when they did get them, you would come in and they would do it all in one shot. For example, a company ordering supplies from an office store will issue a purchase order detailing the items purchased, their prices, payment terms, delivery dates, and any special discounts for early payment. Special discount for early payment, folks. If I'm going to a dealership and I'm going to promise in that documentation that they're going to get their credit within 3 days, in full, then that's a special discount. I should get a special discount, right? Well, of course you should. And that's the special discount when you go in there and give them the credits for that purchase price of $57,000 and however many odd dollars, whatever, instead of a installment payment where you end up paying $114,000 for that same $57,000 vehicle. That's your discount. You're going to get rid of all the future paperwork that they're going to demand that you send them as far as checks or whatnot, and their billing department is going to send you receipts and all that. You're going to get rid of all that paperwork. Paperwork Reduction Act. You're going to make it easy for them. You're going to use one piece of paper. You're going to fill it out correctly. You're going to give the proper directive and let them know they have a certain time limit. Oh, and here's where you're going to send it to for final delivery. Special considerations. I don't think we need to worry about an example of a requisition. That's, like I said, I think I gave a good enough example there where you order the tires and then they're going to requisition that set of tires specifically for you internally. They're not going to charge you for them yet. They're going to wait till they get them and then put them on your card. That's where the charge comes. Special considerations. Streamline and automate companies. Purchase to pay systems streamline and automate companies' requisition and procurement processes. Three main processes are cared for by these systems: requisitioning, purchasing, and payment. So if you got a purchase order and you got a requisition order, what's the payment? You guys catching that? If the purchase order is a directive for payment, then what is the payment? It's the negotiable terms that you put on the document. That is how you pay. That is the only way that we have to pay anything, folks. You do not have money to pay anything. You have contractual paperwork that you can fill out and put your negotiable terms on that document. And they have to be special. They can't be particular or general. They have to be specific to you, yourself, and your conditions. No way else can it be done. And I see we lost John. My apologies. And I want to thank everybody. We're at the end of our show or stream or whatever you want to call it, our informational session here today. I certainly appreciate everybody's support. There's like, share, and subscribe buttons down there for everybody that wants to help spread this information. And of course, there's a PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love. Again, it's all appreciated. I'm new as well. Been watching the Man of God for a while now. All I can say is research game is amazing while breaking it down. I appreciate it. All glory does go to him. Purchase order is a contract. The purchase requisition is not. If they refuse to accept a purchase order without a valid reason, it could be they are acting in bad faith and violating their duty. Yes, because they offered it in good faith and had negotiable has places where you can put your negotiations on, which are your specific conditions that they have to give equal consideration for in good faith because they offered it in good faith. Absolutely correct. Yes, the Postal Service and the Treasury are already trustees. All you have to do is recognize them. How do you recognize them? You put them in the document. You direct it to them. Use the Postal Service in its appropriate manner for physical definitive paper forms, which are actual and real, and not intangible in an electronic form that can be printed off. You got to learn how to do this. The paper form, again, this digital currency that they're talking about will never take over your ability to contract, and that will always be done orally into written form. Always. They cannot deny you that. So think about this stuff, folks. And once again, I appreciate everybody's support. And you know me, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. So may God bless you and have a good day.